Oh, there you are.
Here I am. Yes, it was working on getting the recording going. So here we are. The recording is happening. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Sama Morningstar, and we have Jonita D'Souza here with us in the Womb Centered Healing Temple for a free gift feature call in which we will be sharing about our experiences with the everyday womb revival meditation that Jonita was just so generously gifted us during the opening summit. And I'm so thrilled that we were able to come together for this call. I have been enjoying this meditation. It just brings us back to the basics, which I share about all the time, right? And we all need reminders and support from our sisters. Remember to come back to our core essence, the center of our inner wisdom, the womb, and the center of our inner creative power, the womb, our wombs. And so whatever we can gather, whatever support we can gather, especially high quality support with Jonita's delicious voice guiding us for that, is so wonderful. So thank you all for joining us to discuss this. And so we have, I wanted to go around and do a little introduction. Maybe, Jonita, you can introduce yourself a little bit too, and then we'll go around and just have a check-in with everyone that's here.
Okay. Thank you, Sama, for this space, holding this beautiful space and creating all of this so ceremonially. I'm just loving being this space and the energy here, and so excited that I can support the wombs across the world through my voice and through this meditation. So my name is Jonita D'Souza, and I work with women, and just like Sama, I desire to touch the wombs of the women around the world, and I am really, what I like to call myself is a feminine lifestylist, and I integrate the tantric Taoist traditions of the feminine arts to bring that into the modern lifestyle of us busy women. And today I'm extremely excited to talk about the Everyday Womb Revival audio guide, which I had the opportunity to share in the temple space with which Sama beautifully created. It has been a beautiful part of my journey and the sisters that I have shared with. And today I am excited to be here to talk to you, maybe answer any questions, to share my experience and see how we can deepen our womb wisdoms.
And why you felt drawn to come to this call.
Hi, I'm Kendra Teagan. I'm here to learn more about my womb, and I've been on an intensive healing journey internally, and I've had a lot of pain in my womb and just a lot of negativity towards myself. So I'm relearning how to love again and nourish my womb and create with my womb. So any information on that, I'm loving, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Kendra. Thank you so much for joining us. And who else would like to introduce yourself?
I will.
Okay, Jeannie.
Okay. I was brand new to all this, and then Sama, you did your series, and I don't have words for it, and that's a good thing, because it really touched me so deeply. And I couldn't believe there was this whole healing genre that I was not familiar with at all, and how much it was needed, and it might be key not just for women, but for everyone. So today I had a very healing conversation with my sister, and something happened about a month ago where I had heart palpitations start, and I can't see, and it involves other sisters. And I thought, I know too much. So I called her, and we had a great conversation, a lot of heart. and forgiveness. And when I hung up, I opened my email, and I really hadn't planned to do this, but I must really need it. I have other things I'm supposed to be doing. But yeah, but I must have, I felt divinely guided to click on the link. And so here I am, and I'm a beginner, and I'm willing to learn whatever my heart brings me to. And I so am in awe of you, Sama, and Jonita. It's just amazing. I'm sorry, I don't have any other words. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Jeannie, and following the call to join us. So welcome. All right, so who's next for introducing yourself and giving a little check-in of what drew you to join us here on the call?
I'll go.
Who is this? I see your phone number.
This is Rosanna. I'm calling on my phone.
Oh, okay, great. Hi, Rosanna.
Aloha.
Aloha.
The timing of this is really perfect. My moon time is about to start, and I've been, honoring, like a retreat time for my moon time for years now. But my, spiritual healing practices all over the place, and I really need something that's embodied and simple and inward. And so this room meditation is so perfect. The timing, like it's remarkable how much just in the few days before it's beginning, like all this rawness comes up, and I feel like so bare and vulnerable and skinless, and I just like deeply feminine, like I just want to curl up into a ball, and all this deep stuff comes up to be healed. And it's such a huge shift in energy, and it's nice to honor, but it's also something that really does require a lot of support. So I really appreciate this. Thank you.
You're so welcome, Rosanna. Thank you so much for joining us and bringing your vulnerability to the circle. It's a blessing to have you here. Okay, who else would like to introduce yourself briefly and share a little bit about what drew you to join us in the circle? So we have a very small, intimate circle, and we'd love to hear your voices, even possibly say.
I just wanted to thank the last caller. I didn't catch her name, but for her vulnerability and her moon time, and I appreciate that. I may not be on my moon time, but because of the day I've had, I feel very vulnerable and yet very safe. It's just loving. It's just so loving. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you, Jeannie. And let's see, put a tax on all of the technology. So,
Yeah.
Okay, Katie is not allowing me to unmute you. Darn it. Well, if you can unmute yourself, please feel free to jump in and introduce yourself. We would love to hear from you. And in the meantime, I thought we could have a little discussion to start off the conversation about, I would love to hear, Jonita, about when was the first time you started connecting with your womb? Like before you knew that was a good idea, what kind of inner guidance or support did you receive to or discover to that started you on this path to be able to support women in this way?
I shared a part of, I must say that I'm also feeling very vulnerable. I'm on my moon time, and I've had like a crazy day, and I just feel really tender in my body, and I can feel the sharings before from Zana and Jeannie. So I'm with you on this.
Mhm.
Just wanted to say. I shared a part of the story in the temple space as well in the summit, when I realized that there was this dragon, this fire inside my womb that said like no more, and I couldn't realize where that power all of a sudden came into existence, because I was quite a quiet, introvert, timid kind of person until then, taking all and going through my abusive relationship, as I shared. That was the very first instance, but um, if I have to be truly honest, I was in one of the shamanic ceremonies, and we were journeying through certain process, and there was one moment I felt excruciating pain in my womb, and I couldn't contain it. I didn't have it before. I never had it, never experienced it, but in that moment it got me like somebody was like literally stabbing me on my womb, and I started to cry and cry and louder, and I had to be taken away. And one of the healers, she told me, I can feel your grandma. And I was like, what is she talking about? It's just painful. It's just, I was screaming and I just didn't know what I was doing, and it was painful. And she said, I can feel your grandmother. Are you ready to release her? And I just didn't know what she was talking. She was asking me my grandma's name and all of that. And I was like, I don't know. I can't think. And I ended up like passing out, creating only last year, to be honest. But I have been using this process when I did not have this lifestyle of working with a woman. I was in the state job, and that kind of helped me to connect deeply, to feel the resource that I had inside of me. And it was beautiful, because I was started asking my womb, what do you need right now? What do you need from me today? And that was a question I never asked. And yeah, that's when I started consciously connecting.
Wow. So it sounds like this meditation that you've shared with us it has a deep foundation in your own practice. And I'm very curious. Well, first of all, did that initial self meditation that you recorded on your phone, did it include those questions like you have now in the one that you gifted to us? Did it include the same kinds of questions that asking your womb, what do you need?
No, it didn't. It didn't really. It was just pretty much, excuse me. Excuse me. I need to cough.
Take your time. Take your time.
Excuse me for that. No, it didn't have those questions at all. In fact, it was just a reminder of, it was just a sequence of breathing in, breathing out. Pretty much just that in the initial days to begin with, but just that practice started opening, new inquiry within me. And then I started journaling, and I would ask this, like, what do I need today? And then I was like, okay, maybe I should ask my womb, what do I need? So I kind of like continuously improved that process throughout a period of time. So the series of questions that I had was just very experiential. And when I started sharing it with other women of my circle, they also felt the difference in experiencing this audio and asking these questions on a daily basis. And which I'm really glad, because it came through an experience, an experiment, I would say, of my own journey.
And another question I have is, I'm very curious about some of the early answers you received when you first started asking your womb, what do you need today? And what kinds of answers would come out on your journaling pages or in your reflections?
To be honest, in the beginning, I did not have any answers. Like my womb was so numb. Whatever she says to you, even if you give literally a minute a day to just provide her with that, is sufficient to begin the relationship with our womb. We don't have to rest for, like, sometimes just for me, doing nothing for 5 minutes, my womb felt rested. During my lunch breaks at work, I would not talk to anybody and just lock myself in the toilet and just sit there. And that was it. So listening to me was doing things in really small nuances. So she would say things like, go out for a walk. But I didn't want to go out for a walk because it was really cold, and raining and all of that thing in London. But then I started doing little by little, small actions, small momentum, just to make her feel that I'm listening. Even if you don't make sense, I'm listening. So I'm cultivating a relationship. I'm not going to ignore you anymore. So even if it doesn't make sense, I will at least spend, a couple of minutes a day to listen.
Beautiful. And so as this practice has developed over the years, I would love to hear what it feels like to you now, how much, how that has grown over the years. I'm imagining you're not just doing the tiniest little bit anymore of listening and doing her the bare minimum to make sure she knows that you're listening. I'm imagining that womb wisdom is quite a bit more integrated into your whole lifestyle at this point. Can you share about that?
Yeah. So it came through years of slow momentum, and I feel like right now it's a big part of how I'm making decisions, how I am engaging in conversations, or even when I am in a conflicting conversation with my husband. So just it's always reminding myself, and it comes through practice as well. There are times that for me she is like crazy woman, and I need to go and dance her out, just to feel like, I sometimes like she's screaming out, and especially during my moon time. There is this, I feel the sense, and it used to scare me before, like this kind of expression used to scare me, but now I dance it out, and I allow my dragon energy to just feel and come out, because I learned, actually one of the biggest thing that I learned was to express my anger. I had no clue how to express my anger, and I never liked expressing my anger to people. The best place was for me in my bathroom, in my toilet seat, just by myself, like cry a little bit and okay, done for now. But now I feel like, I can use that anger as this energy in my body, and I like to use it into shamanic dance, and it has, womb is leading me right now, and doing business this way is helping me to be different than all of the others doing the same work. We are coming from a place of connection than competition, and this is sustainable, and this is the way of the womb again. It's all the interconnectedness. We met this way. So for me, this is like huge part of my life right now, and the womb wisdom has been a source of a resource, I would say, and I have to keep reminding myself. There are days that I don't want.
Had a lot of emotional pain. And I had actually my physical, the first big motivation to connect with my womb and find out what was going on.
Yeah.
And that coincided with a lot of these chronic infections that I had. And then the second motivation is preparing for menopause. And which with the training that I received, I saw that whatever I didn't address as far as my emotional pain, whatever I didn't listen to in the messages my womb was giving me throughout my life, would accumulate and demand attention during menopause, during that menopausal transition. That was the training that I received, and that made a lot of sense to me. Because I had seen my mother and my grandmother go through what they went through, and all the years of them not listening to their feminine guidance, or not having a space to to do that, not knowing that that was important, believing in the system that says that's not something valid to listen to, right? And so I saw how it affected them throughout their lives, and that was another motivation for me. And so this practice of regularly listening to the womb, for me, my womb has always had a lot to say, like and guided me somewhat without me even knowing it. And I'm imagining that you might relate to that, and many other women on this call might relate to that, that when you look back on it, when you start listening more and more consciously, you realize, oh, that's what that was back then, when I somehow knew what I needed to do without knowing what I needed to do, right? And where a strong message came through. I mean, I've had times in my life where I would have like screaming hot flashes with messages coming through of do this now, like no uncertain terms. And it was like I was either going to do this now, or I was going into major full-blown menopausal, perimenopausal dysfunction and dysregulation of all of my systems. And my whole system was getting ready to go full on. We're taking over, it's a coup, right? And so because my body is very insistent on my purpose and job in this life. So I've learned through health issues, really, to listen to my body. I made a commitment early on in my life that I would listen to my body and to my womb. I remember the first time I started drawing pictures of my womb and my heart and all the connecting vessels going back and forth and energy lines and just reconnecting those areas. And so for me, it can be a very much of a, this is what's happening now. And your meditation is such a wonderful, simple reminder to consciously say, hey, on a daily basis, what do you need today? And it's come up for me listening to your meditation. My womb's like, we need to move this body. We need to get some exercise. We need to move it, we need to move it around. And so I've been doing that. And so that's really supportive, because I can tend to be just like, oh, I got this nice new comfy couch,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A really common thing. And then we make it as an excuse that, for example, as you said, that I want to be in the couch, and we are our subconscious mind is also really manipulative in that way. To be honest, that we can this is we can actually put ourselves into excuses like my womb wants to rest, and and you procrastinate because my womb is desiring to rest, but maybe not. Your womb is telling you something else if you actually listen to her, because it's not always what you want. Many times, the journey to the dark goddess, and I've been again working with the dark feminine in the last 8-9 months of this year, has been all about dark feminine, and the womb is the source of our darkness, the source of void and creation. So there will be times that you will be brought to your knees because of something that you want to release, and the womb will take you there. And we have to allow ourselves to listen and trust and honor that, rather than making up an excuse or making up an idea of our own.
Yeah, and that's a wonderful point that you make, because there are many voices that might be influencing us from inside, and this process of listening to the womb, listening to my body, it has been a process of having some discernment, some emotional awareness, and becoming a connoisseur of the flavors of messages that might be coming through. I'm very familiar with the part of me that just wants to curl up on the couch. And that's a very vulnerable part of me that that just wants to be held and comforted. And there are times when that's really what's needed. And if I don't give myself that when it's needed, then it's constantly niggling at me when I'm supposed to be, when I need to be doing other things, then I just want to curl up on the couch. So becoming really familiar, knowing ourselves very intimately through this process of that kind of listening, that daily checking in to the womb and getting a variety of different messages that some of them might make a lot of sense, some might not make very much sense. Like I remember one of the times recently when my womb woke me up in the morning with, it was very clear to me, it was words from my womb directly saying to me, I can give you all the energy that you need. And I'd been struggling with a lot of fatigue and body symptoms from some work situations that were demanding more from me than, and my body was feeling like at the edge of being able to really do it. I'm a massage therapist, and that takes a lot of energy, at least the, you know, the way, the amount that I like to give to my clients. And so, and my womb said, I can give you all the energy that you need. And so it was like, oh, right. Here I have this self-generative source connecting, that connects directly to the energy creative sources of the universe and of the earth, and self-generative creative energy flow. So we could go on and on just
I wanted to share something real quick. Something that my womb regularly requires of me is a good cry. To be honest, this was quite surprising for me because I was having a lot of, you know, desires and like new ideas and inspirations and all of that, but a lot of fear around it as well. And I recognized that my womb was craving for a good cry from time to time. And it was really like me pretty much by my altar, and I was just like sit and cry and hold my womb and just cry and cry and cry. And then many times I fell asleep like that in my bed, just crying, and woke up next day like feeling super fresh and like new ideas and things are like shifted. And so my womb needed to like literally, you know, wanted me to just cry out, right? You know, and it was a form of big release for me. And it happened to me 2 days ago when I sat at my moon again. I just ended up crying on the floor and slept because, again, I had some new inspiration and felt all the fear around my future desires, and just went into that descent really quick into my womb. And next day I was shown guidance. I was shown new, I was able to receive new ideas and a new strength and courage from there. So many times, you know, you will be called into facing your darkness by your womb as well. So it's not always a nice ride, but it's all about trusting.
Yes. It seems like it recalibrates what qualifies as nice, right? Because we are taught that crying isn't nice, or expressing anger isn't nice. But when more and more we have the experience of releasing through crying, releasing that anger and all of the flood of vitality and creativity that comes on the other side of that, then for me, that redefines nice, and it redefines pleasure. For me, oftentimes those big releases of emotion from the womb are quite ecstatic, even orgasmic.
Yes. I love those good cries by myself, alone, dark in my room with a candle. Okay, I'm not afraid of it anymore, I should say.
Right. But that took a minute to get there, because we're so indoctrinated and ingrained with this that it's not okay to feel that way, and something's wrong.
Yeah, it took years of crying practice to feel okay.
Right. So I would love to hear if any of you are feeling inspired by this conversation, feeling there's something you would like to share, those of you who have joined us on the call, or if there's any questions that you have for Jonita or myself, I'd love to hear if you have listened to Jonita's meditation, or if you're feeling inspired to more, anything that you would like to share with us would be lovely. So just go ahead, and I'm getting my spinning rainbow again. So I'm afraid that in my ability to unmute might be limited, but just go ahead and unmute yourself if you can, and just start speaking, and we'd love to hear you.
Hi.
Hi, Kendra.
So, hello again. Jonita, I really resonate with what you're saying about the pain in the womb. Like recently, I've been having a lot of really intense pain, and it feels like it almost makes me pass.
In this practice, and you make it a daily, you will begin to hear more, listen more, and understand. Many times, doing little it's many times that our womb feels neglected, and a lot of tension and trauma and unresolved emotions can be resolved just by becoming available to her. And this practice is pretty much about becoming available. And what happens next is an individual's journey. And many times beautiful things unfold. Many times the beautiful things unfold through a long run. And, it's everyone's individual journey. So there is no protocol to this kind of work. I must say, you must be willing to go into it.
Yes, I'm really ready to just feel pleasure in my body again. And I mean, I never, society and conditioning, I thought I had to be like a pinup looking girl, and I just wanted to be sexy, and I didn't really touch into like what it meant I really wanted to just feel real love and connection, and not feel like I had to be this idea of like a Stepford wife or like a pinup doll. So like I feel a lot of it has just been like Sama, like you were saying, all those times when I was younger and my womb was speaking up to say, hey, this isn't what we want, or, my gut instinct. And I would push it down and say, oh, I have to do this. So I have to just ignore my true feeling. So just getting in that protocol, just getting in that connection again of listening to her and feeling what she has to say, and then not judging it and not being like, oh, this is weird or whatever, just allowing it to come up and then clearing it and maybe reprogramming it with more loving sensual touch and like true connection.
Sounds like you're already receiving some wisdom from yourself there. Just hearing you speak, it sounds like you're telling yourself what you might be moving towards.
What is unfolding,
and that's often what happens, is that just that intention sometimes even to connect, and then like that's why the journaling that Jonita was talking about is so important. Oftentimes I tell my clients, in fact, my free gift, which I'll be featuring soon, is writing from the womb, which is it's a very similar practice to this, but it involves I have several in the course, I have several similar meditations to this, and then journaling prompts, so that you actually combine the two practices of doing these meditations and then the journaling, which then gets the words of the womb out on the paper for you then to take a look at what it's telling you, and be able to reflect more deeply on that. So that's one direction with the journaling, if that is calls to you. And then another direction that these are directions that really work for me, but like I agree with Jonita, every person has what they're drawn to. But another direction that really works for me is body movement and breath practices. So yoga and breath, because oftentimes what we're dealing with the pain in the body is old residual traumas, even generational traumas, with that's safe for. And then as we connect with our bodies it starts to release. So I hope this is answering your question some.
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Okay, anybody else have something to share? If you haven't,
Hi.
is that Rena?
Yeah.
Hey!
Hi, Rena. Can you put
So
your
I
video on?
wanted to share. Oh, yeah. I wanted to share. I don't have as much time, but I wanted to share that I love the meditation, especially during times of confusion. I love to listen to the meditation, maybe like before presentation, in the middle, after, and then somewhere in the middle, all of a sudden, there'll be like the solution. I didn't even think of it. I'm like, yes, this is what to do. So yeah, it helps me for that, I notice. And then another thing is between, oh, somebody else wants to talk too.
No, it's okay. You go ahead, Rena.
Oh, okay. And then the second thing is I notice when I have intense pain and I'll listen to that meditation, I'll get a message that will be like, create something new. Like either go into art or cook something or something like just to not think. Right? And then after, way after, while I'm looking at my painting or while I'm tasting and sharing what I made, like it usually is like a dessert, right? You're like, oh, this is a new way I could grow, like another idea, and it's not really related to the actual dessert or to the actual painting, but it'll be something related to me, but it's like an old story from my past, like my maybe like mother or my grandmother, like an old story that is there. It's like I went through that too, but it's your time to say yes, which is really interesting. And I think we've had these conversations lately, like Jonita and you, you like opened up that, and that was like one of the messages that kept popping up for me while I'm going through my like moon pain and then listening to the meditation. I'm like, oh, so yeah, those are two things that I wanted to share. And then I think I wrote some comments too, but that's all. Nice.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much, Rena.
Sure.
All right. Anybody else have something that you would like to share? I can actually.
I do.
Okay, Jeannie, please share.
Okay, so I'd like to share something and then have you and Jonita comment on it. Okay, so after the womb is so different when it speaks. It's just, I don't know if it's startling to me or shocking to me. The startling part would be, wow, it's always there. It's always been there. I've always listened to it. I just didn't have as much of a dialogue. If I needed something from my womb, it seemed to immediately help out, whether it was a womb issue of, oh, I don't want this pregnancy, and then it would take care of that, or it was something completely different, but it was a womb question. I read a book one time, you know, your moon time should be when the moon is doing this, and your, you know, so on and so forth. And so I read it backwards. And so had my body cooperated, my womb cooperated, and I switched the moon time with the ovulation, but I didn't like it. I did it for a couple of months, and then I reread the book and went, oh my goodness. So then it went back to what the book said, that so my womb and I must have a very good communication, but it's very different. And I've just never thought about it very much. I think I just like did some things automatically. And I just wondered if you guys had any comments on the fact that I felt there's 3 centers of big time communication. And if you had any comments on the quality of the womb versus the quality of the intuition from the heart.
Well, Jonita, do you have some comments you'd like to share with that?
Yeah, in the Taoist tradition, there is a practice called the river greeting. And the river greeting is pretty much a process of connecting your meridians of your third eye, your heart, and the womb center, pretty much. And it is through mudras. So there is a connection through all of these channels, and it's called it's your river channel, pretty much, of your body. And many times we access information differently, and it could be also at different times in our lives. It could be different points during the day. It could be also what is easier for us in that moment. Sometimes it's not like our womb keeps speaking to us all the time and throughout the day. I don't experience that all the time, but I do listen intentionally. That's for sure. So in the end, it really does not matter if it comes from your womb, your heart, or your third eye, because they are connected with the same meridian. The good thing is that you are able to access this information, and you can connect deeply and have different relationship with these meridian centers. So it's quite beautiful. And this is the river greeting pretty much is a practice of connecting these 3 points and offering your gratitude for the heart and its compassionate wisdom, the womb and its creative energy, and the third eye, the connection to the divine. So I'm surprised that you have access to that at all times, and it's all good.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That helps me a lot, because they're all connected. Just because it filters through one or the other is not that big a deal. It's just whoever wants to speak the loudest, whoever I'm checking in with. Perfect.
Whatever is required for you to receive in that moment.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. What was the river called? I'm sorry, I didn't get the name of the river.
It's called the river greeting.
River greeting. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Jean, lower
Lost you.
has stalled.
Okay.
Can you still hear me now?
I got you back. You're back.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
So these practices help to restart the lower heartbeat, the lower heart rhythm. So there is a very visceral connection. In Chinese medicine, the heart moves the blood, and the womb is the blood. So there's a very big difference between the heart's action of moving the blood and the womb's actually being the blood. It's called oh gosh, my acupuncturist says it so eloquently, and I'm not remembering exactly the words she uses, but something like the pool of blood. It's the ocean of blood in our womb and in our pelvises. And blood being more than just the red fluid that flows, and red and blue fluid that flows through your veins. Blood in the Chinese medicine is more of an energetic thing that means more than just that. It's, this sense of what nourishes you, what animates you, what connects you with your ancient past and into the future, and what flows wisdom and vitality through your whole being, your spirit, your mind, your soul, your whole being. And so the womb being that is the source, that is where that's the blood. It's the blood. And so it says so much. And so for me, the centers that we're most often encouraged to cultivate our connection with in our current society are the third eye center of insight and intuition, and the heart center of insight and intuition. So given most of our upbringing and exposure to what is mostly discussed and shared in healing circles, those are going to be the easiest and probably most developed for people to connect to. That's why I emphasize connecting with the womb, because it's been the most neglected, ignored, unacknowledged. And even with someone like yourself and myself, where we've always had this natural connection, when we start to focus on that, we realize, oh my gosh, yes, I've been listening, my womb's been involved, but I haven't acknowledged and given credit to my womb for guiding me all of my life. And that's when a major healing starts to happen, is when we start to recognize and acknowledge and give back to the womb. As Jonita was saying earlier, to say, I'm listening to you. I really am acknowledging that I'm listening to my womb. Good to hear you. Would you like to turn on your video so we can see you too?
I am on my phone, so I'm not sure if that happens on a phone, does it?
As long as you have a camera, it can.
Oh, hi. I'm also in my car, obviously, and I've pulled over to listen to all this at various points in my travel journey. Can you guys, is reception good?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. First of all, and I'll probably cry because I'm really going through a stage of just really being cracked open. And it's a powerful thing and it's a good thing. It's just, you know how those emotions can be super overwhelming. And I'm just kind of made that way, sensitive. So first I just want to, and I also feel just such a strong presence of reverence for this work and for all of you who are sharing. I just want to thank you for honoring yourselves. And you know, the biggest work we can do in the world is what we do in ourselves, right? And then we step out and share to others. And to find community where we can speak this language of things that are you know, rather foreign. They're foreign for some, and then like so normal for others, right, in this journey. So it's funny functioning in this world where we have to or at least me, going back and forth of like, okay, this is a tribe that I don't have to filter, and I can just say and experience. And then other areas and people and places are kind of like, okay, I've got to like change my language a little bit. And all that has to do with our own decisions, not that we're putting that on ourselves to be a chameleon for others. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So anyway, what I really wanted to share, that besides just honoring each of you, I mean, it's so beautiful and fascinating that as humans, and specifically probably as women, that we can step into these powerful places and support one another. But so this womb space thing is really kind of new for me to tap into, and I'm not a person that's not present in my body, and yet I'm one of those ones that I'd say needs to work through feeling numb in that area. So that's really exciting that that'll be opening up, and new levels of awareness. So that's super exciting. And one of the things, Jonita, that really stood out to me that you shared was that connection of the pain and your grandmother's energy being around there, or that cord that's tapped in there. With, you know, I'm not exactly sure the details of the words that express that, but that really bore witness to me that, you know, our lineage is connected to us, and those are things that we work out. And then here are people going to the gynecologist and suffering from crampings and all these things that can be so spiritually related. And talk about numbness, you know, talk about like not being tapped into that and taking medication. And so that just felt really exciting for me, for you. For one thing, is to have that piece answered for you and opened up to you, and the bravery that was for you to, I mean, you even passed out with that kind of intensity, and yet you still walked in the healing through that, and the experience of that, even if it was 1 minute in your very super busy day. And that spoke to me too. It was kind of like, if you just tap in for 1 minute to your womb space, that how transforming that can be. just doing that. We don't have to go up to an 8-hour retreat or something like that. That might be a blessing, but just that 1 minute of focus can be a game changer. So thank you for that gift of there's so many of us have a busy. Thank you for that. And then I just want to also say that some of that, how you articulated that these organs, these tissues are all along the same meridian. That was an aha moment. Yeah, I could express that, but I just wanted to say that was really awesome. And then, oh my God, like the womb space being like the second heart and a pump. That's just like my mind's just being blown. So I just want to thank you all, and I'm kind of on the sidelines taking a lot of these videos in, and the summit. It feels super scattered to me because there's so many other emails coming in from other things I'm doing. But please know that the transformation for me is happening, and the effects of all of us, even those that aren't presenting, but those that might come onto the Facebook page and present a question or be silently doing their work, I'm feeling that. And I just want to thank you for welcoming me into this like kind of new journey, as well as my voice today was just to say that I'm here and I'm present, and I'm grateful for this work. So that's just kind of what I wanted to share with all of you.
So wonderful, Betsy. Thank you so much for sharing your reflections. Yeah.
Thank you. So yeah, I don't really have a question, but I just wanted to reflect back. That when we come out and we share our stories, that they really do have a rippling effect to others. And thank you. So thank you, Jonita, for sharing your story and your warrior heart and bravery.
Thank you. Thank you for witnessing me.
Okay. So I'll say bye and open this up for someone else.
Okay, thank you, Betsy.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Anyone else would like to share?
I'll go.
Okay, is that Rosanna?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Well, I loved everybody opening up. I really appreciate this space. And at first, I was thinking, well, I don't even know what I would say. I really appreciated what Jeannie brought up. I really relate to what she was saying about the heart, and it's amazing the difference of the voices and the way they communicate, and I found that really helpful. My intuition doesn't speak to me verbally. I don't get very clear, logical, linear things. It's usually energy. It's movement, it's emotion, it's very primal, and it has a lot of information in it sometimes. Like Janine said, in my heart, I'll get the flavor of a choice I could or could not make. And my womb is even more, it's a little slower sometimes. And at the time when I was wondering, I wasn't even getting anything clear, I was getting away. I'm like, why am I not connecting in here? And this keeps coming up, and sometimes, there's our nervous system, and it has these primal reactions that we all share. And and it's such a deeper part of our psyche. It's very primitive. It's like communicating with a rock or a plant. It's less responsive than other parts inside of us. And this is such a crucial part of healing trauma, I think, is connecting with, when I notice this, the flight instinct, I picture this gorgeous horse just galloping across a field. And usually I look down on myself a little bit for wanting to escape, because I value being present, and I see what a beautiful thing that is. And trauma is like the opposite of being present. And yet this flight energy, it's this primal reaction. And so when I notice that, this tension that's wanting to escape, I picture this horse galloping across the field, and I see that as a beautiful thing. And I've come to kind of communicate with my body that way and see it as there's some part of me that is so powerful that it has the raw energy to take me away from some really awful situations I've been in, and to see that as something beautiful and appreciate it. And by visualizing it and letting the energy just move in my body and just saying, hey, you can dance, you can run across that field with abandon. Once I let that out, immediately I suddenly can drop into that world of that inner landscape of emotion under there. So that's really helped me with accessing the womb space, because there's kind of like these guardians that protect that space in a way. And I think that's one aspect of that. I was wondering if, I don't even know what questions to ask. I wish I did this more, and I really appreciate having the exercise to work with. I think there's something about feeling connection and having that sense of focus. I guess, I don't know if other people can relate, but sometimes our consciousness can flow and be all over the place and be very watery, and something that gives it a slight bit of structure can be really supportive. So I'm really looking forward to deepening into this meditation. So thank you.
You're so welcome, Rosanna, and I appreciate your description of how the trauma is to release that from the body. So I love your image of allowing yourself to dance wildly, to run across that field with abandon, physically, actually doing that physically, running away, because that is a very wise response to that trauma. And if you didn't get to run away when you were in that original traumatic experience, it's in your body, and it needs to happen in order to recover. So it's so great that you described it so beautifully, and imagining your horse running away and all of that. And so your process of recognizing and honoring the wisdom of that impulse is so powerful. It's so powerfully healing, because there are, many approaches to healing that would say, like you were saying, no, you can't run away. You need to be present with this.
Yep.
And really, really, that's not listening to what the body needs, which is to discharge this powerful impulse to run away that was awakened in you in that original trauma. So beautifully expressed. Thank you. I see you nodding your head, Jonita. I wonder if you have something burning to add to that. Uh-oh. Can't hear you. There you go.
Yeah. I muted myself and I didn't realize. Yeah, I loved listening to you, Rosanna, and the description of the horse and running away, and how you are transforming the story for yourself and feeling safe in there. It's very inspiring to see your awareness of it. And what I'm witnessing is your trust in this process as well. And Sama very beautifully described as well how it works with even spiritual practices. We cannot be present. But I also noticed that a lot of us women feel unsafe to tap into the womb because, or the trust, because of a lot of issues related to our sexuality. And that whole area, which is that whole concept and topic that is repressed and not expressed in the sacredness of what it is, leads to many times not trust and run away from this womb work as well. There's a lot of resistance shows up when we do not relate to our sacred sexuality. And Emma, you shared earlier as well that working with the womb opened these gateways for you. And in your sexuality, and you can express and you can be more of your sacred self. A lot of us have not been taught that way. We don't feel safe in our sexuality. We have been taught a particular way that does not resonate to us. And Kendra also shared something similar. Like it's a very common thing among a lot of us women. We cannot trust the womb because sometimes it will begin to feel too good. And yeah, this is true. And we have resistance to feeling good. As a society, we are in this culture that we do not allow ourselves to touch that sacred pleasure by ourselves. And the womb can be also a source of that. So our reptilian brain often tries to step in and confuse us, and we find difficulty trusting, because sometimes, yes, it can be too good and juicy too. And I just wanted to share, and I don't know what I'm saying about that, but it just came out for me when I was listening to your story, that this is sacred sexuality is a big part of connecting and deepening the
connection, or a trauma than a run across a wild field, or a ride on a horse running away, or some way of releasing some of these, even not in our lifetimes, traumas from our ancestral lineage, from our soul lineage of traumas that we are recovering from now as women that are reclaiming our womb tower. And the womb has the beautiful capacity to connect us to those lineages generations back. I often say there's an energetic umbilical cord from the womb back 7 generations more, and forward 7 generations as well. So as we release whatever traumas we've experienced in our personal lifetime, then it starts to ripple out back and forward and out to all of our sisters, and we can connect to the collective wounding and become this pulsing beacon of womb healing. And that's what I envision this temple to be for all of us together, supporting each other. And boy, I'm getting some waves of pleasure just talking about this right now. I don't know about all of you, but I'm having a little...
I'm getting excited too for you and for us.
Yes. Kendra says yes in the chats. So I've been trying to follow the chats a little bit too, but this is such a juicy conversation. So thank you, Jonita, for bringing in the pleasure aspect. Woo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I personally experienced the realization that my sacred sexuality or my pleasure is just mine. That was one of the biggest realization that my womb taught me as well. And that's when I began to feel safe in my body and in my sexuality, that it is for me first. And all my life, I didn't realize that it was for me first. What we know and what we grew up with, the programming, is that it's for the man in our life, it's for the partners in our life. But deeper connection to the womb opens all these portals of the yoni as well. So it's all connected.
Woo, let's all have a wonderfully pleasureful day or night after this. I feel it's flowing. Lovely. Thank you, Jonita, for that clarification. Yes, it is. We own that. We are sovereign beings of pleasure. So, all right. Well, unless anyone else has something to share, I just want to give one last chance in case anybody who hasn't had a chance to share would like to. Us and for joining me on this call, and thank everyone here for joining me on the call. And I want to thank anyone who's watching the recording as well, for her feminine center. We can just imagine and dream this together. Bring our womb wisdom and all of our vitality and all of our beauty and all of our pleasure to this dream, to this reality that is happening now, that's growing now with us coming together in this temple. And that we can devote ourselves to our own awakening, to our womb wisdom in each moment, and know that it's revolutionary and in service for the whole world, the whole human species, and all of the ecosystem of our beautiful planet. And so it is.
So it is.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and unmute everyone so we can all say our goodbye blessings, and it might get a little noisy here. So thank you, everyone. Kisses and hugs.
Ah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Love to all of you. Thank you, sisters.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful witnessing you all. Beautiful.
Yes. All right. Take good care now.